Alright YouTube, what's going on? It's Rewire STRIKE. So I'm making a simple video today about how dead stick zones work. But before I do that, I need to kind of portray this basic idea of how your joysticks work in general. So your joysticks operation can be represented mathematically along a coordinate system. So that's what I have represented here on the screen. So this is going to be your coordinate system. It's going to be your traditional X and Y coordinates to represent a single point. Now, there are two circles, as you can see, a black one here, which would be the end of your joystick, and I drew a red one here, and this one will be your dead stick zone. Now, like I was saying earlier, how your joystick creates an input of a single point. Let's just say you're not touching the controller at all. It is just sitting there, just laying down. You're not putting any pressure on at all on the joystick. So it's going to create a point here in the center, in the exact center, 0, 0. So, for example, if this is your left joystick, your player's not going to be moving at all. It's not going to be doing anything. But mostly it's not going to be registering it because it falls within this dead stick zone. Okay, so if you were to, let's say, push upwards on the controller straight up, let's say you push all the way up to where it's no possible, your point would be right here on the edge of your boundary, and that would be your way of telling the Xbox through the controller, hey, move forward. And eventually your input of the point movement your Xbox would respond by moving your player forward as well. Now there are different levels to the dead stick zone. So the best way I could say this is, if you create a good dead stick zone, you can kind of change the shape of it. So it can be larger than the previous one here, right? So I'm going to center it. It could be larger than the previous one. So what that'll do is, when you put more pressure on it, let's say your point's here, it's obviously not here, but you put more pressure on it towards upwards, the dead stick zone still has said this point is not in our input area. So you're not going to be adding any movement to your character. So by, let's say you keep the same point, but you decrease your dead stick zone to something really small, right? I mean, really small. Then I'm trying to make this as small as possible. It has a minimum amount to where, okay, it clearly sees it now. It says, okay, you're out of the dead stick zone. This is an area you must want your character to move forward. And that's the general idea of how dead stick zones work. Now, to be more precise and show you what type of problems can occur by increasing and decreasing your dead stick zone. So if we increase our dead stick zone to something huge, right here, no matter where you move in your area, this green dot right here is not going to move your player at all. It still falls within this red circle. So it doesn't know. You're basically saying, hey, until this green dot moves forward into this area here, I don't want you to move my green dot, my player, at all. So that's one of the problems that by having too large of a dead stick zone. Now, traditionally, you kind of want to have a dead stick zone that's built around your controller, because here's where some of the problems can arise. So let's say you have a traditional dead stick zone like the one I represented here. Now, when you're not putting any input, like I said earlier, it should fall here at the 0, 0 mark. But in reality, because of the way electrical components are and how maybe the rubber is misshapen on the controller, when you're not putting any pressure on the joystick, the point could actually fall here, which is a little bit off, okay? Or it could fall here, which is a little bit off. Now, if you have a small dead stick zone, like a tiny one, I mean, absolutely tiny, like this. Let's say it's the smallest we could possibly make it. Alright, and your dead stick zone is now, you fall right here on the line. It's not really all that far away from the 0, 0 point, and in a larger dead stick zone, it wouldn't actually be telling your Xbox to move your character, but because you have a small dead stick zone, that actually causes an input, and your character starts to slowly drift, whatever direction this is. So this is the direction away from the origin, so your character is going to slowly start to drift away, slowly but surely, and that's where problems can arise. So that's actually the reason why I had to return some of my Xbox controllers, is because they had some malfunction parts, and that's what was happening. And the only way to really get around that for me was when the joystick wasn't having any pressure on it, I had to have a dead stick zone of like this big in order to make sure that the point wouldn't actually generate any input for my character to move, which isn't really how I play, because I play a lot of FPSs and you need a lot of precision. So my typical dead stick zone is probably half of that, which is, instead of it taking up one over, it probably takes over half of one and half of one over. So that's my traditional style dead stick zone. I try to make it as small as possible to make the controller as sensitive as possible, but because of the limitations of the electronic components in the chip, the best thing I can do is just maintain my dead stick zone. And yeah, so that's pretty much the end of this video. Thanks for watching.